recording because I did promise people that I would record it and then share it with others. Okay, so hi everybody, welcome. My name is Brandy Rosen. I reached out to see if people would be interested in just a little training on writing IEP goal objectives, because there were so many people that were reaching out to me about that particular issue. I provide a ton of trainings for new teachers on, IEPs, IEP goal writing, and I have a lot of that in place. But the objective piece was something that kept coming up. So I thought, well, I might as well put that together as we wrap up this school year so that everybody could have a little support in that area. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I did want you to know, if you have questions, go ahead and I have muted everybody, but go ahead and put those into the chat, and I'll be happy to answer those at the end. If you stay muted, that would be great. And then, and I may, end up, let's see. I'm just going through. I may end up popping in and out. If I notice people pop in, then I'll let them in as well. But I am going to jump into the training. So, like I said, let me close that up. My name is Brandy Rosen. That's a picture of me, even though I can't put my face on the screen in the Zoom for some reason. I think my Zoom brain is broken. I think that's officially what happened. So just a little bit about me so you kind of know who I am. I've been in special education for almost 30 years. I've been a teacher, a behaviorist, an administrator, a teacher trainer, and a new teacher coach. And I've been coaching and mentoring new teachers for about 15 years. And so I do, I love it. I have a passion for it. And I started creating some courses for teachers because so many were reaching out saying, the programs that you're talking about that you use with the teachers in person, we'd love to see. So I started putting those together so teachers who didn't have access to somebody would be able to use those. I have 3 beautiful kids. I have a daughter who's in college, another one going to college next year, and a son who's a freshman in high school, 1 lovely husband, and 3 rescue dogs who, I'm going to say from the beginning, you may hear during this training, because I had to, I was going to be in my office, but I ended up having to come home. So there's a good chance they may start barking. So I apologize in advance for that. I live in California, and it is extremely hot here today. So that's that. But I was raised in Missouri. I spent my whole life in St. Louis. So that's just a little bit about me. Let me just check, make sure. Okay. Okay, so we will hop into it. I'm going to start with kind of taking a little teeny step back. Some of you may have already gone to some of my trainings on IEPs, have some of my resource on IEP goal writing, so I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on that, but I do want to go through the first steps so that we can get to the objectives. And so I always talk about 5 steps to writing game-changing IEP goals every time. And this is what we do before we actually start writing the goals. And this will help you get to a place where you are ready to write those goals and you know where to go. So the first thing we want to ask is, what do we want all students, what are all students needing to do? That's kind of our big picture, right? And then where is the student that you're writing the goals on performing on those skills that you're looking at? And then where do you want them to go? So we kind of started big picture, and then we got smaller, smaller, smaller. And then what do they need to do to be able to get there to where we want them to go? And then does that all match up? That's the process that if you look through, those will be the questions, some of the questions to ask as you're writing goals. Okay, so I put together what I call my rainbow rule. And we'll be using this. I use this in all of my trainings for writing IEP goals because it helps. It's such, IEP goals can be kind of overwhelming and without the structure that we need, but there are rules based on federal and state law of what needs to be included in every IEP. So because my brain works best this way, I put together a little structure so that we can remember what it is that we need in each of our goals. And I call it the rainbow rule because it's easy to remember. So you can see that we need a date, we need a location, we need skills to be worked on, we need accuracy, consistency, and measurement. Every IEP goal needs that across the board, no matter what state you live in, anything. Those are all the legal requirements of an IEP goal. I know that not everybody follows that, but I'm telling you what kind of the federal law is for that, because that's what we want to know, what is it that we are really supposed to do, right? So a date, a location, skills to be worked on, accuracy, consistency, and measurement. I broke those down into colors so that we could, when you're writing a goal, if you use this structure, you can always go back and make sure that you've hit every spot. So that's now, again, I do a lot of trainings on writing goals. That's not what this training is. So we're not going to go into detail about that. What we are going to go into detail is how do we, once we have a goal, how do we figure out what our objectives are going to be if we need to write objectives for goals? And so we're going to go back, we're going to look at those same questions. What do all students need to do? Where's your student performing? Where do we want them to go? How do we get them there? That's what we're going to be looking at. We're going to be relating that all to our objective writing as well. Okay, so the biggest tip in writing an objective is if we make a change in each or any of the colors of the rainbow, then we have good, meaningful objectives. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. Sometimes we get so locked into and confused by how we break that skill down that we don't know how to write the objectives. And to be honest, some of that is overthinking, because there are really simple ways to do it that we lose when we try to overthink it, I think is how I want to say that. Okay. So I'm just going to walk through some of these and explain how I do it. That's what I'm doing today. So I really, when I do my trainings, I want to give you information and skills you can use right away, not big picture, not, I think as, in the world of education, we go to a lot of trainings where there's big ideas and then it's very hard to actually apply that to anything that we're doing. So today we're just going to really do the nuts and bolts of objectives. Okay. So I have a sample goal here, right? Attending. I have a couple different ones, so we'll go through it. But today this first one we're going to talk about is attending. And you can see that as I wrote the goal, I broke it down into my rainbow colors so that so I made sure I had all the parts that I need. So I have by 8/3/2020 in the classroom setting, student will attend the teacher-directed lesson as seen by facing the teacher, a quiet mouth, and materials open to the correct place, independently without displaying off-task behavior. For example, getting out of his seat, talking to his peers, calling out for 20 minutes. Again, I'm not going to go into writing goals because that's not what we're doing so much, but I do want you to know that I'm a big fan of examples as seen by. Any information we can put into a goal is helpful. And then I have our 80% of opportunities over a 2-week period as measured by observation and teacher recorded data. So you can see all the parts of the goals are in this, right? So let's check and let somebody in. Okay. All right. Oop, there we go. Just remember, if you pop in, go ahead and mute if you haven't. Okay. So now we are going to talk about different ways to write the objective. And what I want you to know is if we pop back up to the goal, I'm going to go back here. You're going to see what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each section of the goal and I'm then going to tell you how you can write different objectives by just changing one section of the goal. Okay, so I'm going to go back and forth a little bit so that you can see this. So the first one that I'm going to use to make the objectives is in the classroom setting. So you can see in this goal right there that the expectation of this goal is that they can do it in any classroom setting. Because I didn't specify, my assumption is they're going to do it in any classroom setting. That could be math, it could be language arts, it could be on the playground, it could be anywhere, right? Because I wrote it that way. Well, if I want to use that to write objectives, look at all these different ways that I can change it up to make it a little bit different. So a lot of times when I write goals, I might start as my first objective is going to be in a one-to-one setting. Let's say we're not at this point, let's say Johnny is, he's not able to attend even for 30 seconds in any setting, even if there's one-on-one. So I'm gonna start in that one-to-one setting. That might be my first objective. Then I'm gonna move into a small group setting. Maybe I'm gonna use a certain class setting because maybe the student has difficulty in multiple class settings. And so I'm gonna start with one, and then I'm gonna go ahead and add different ones. So an example, and I'll just, and you know, as I'm talking, you can kind of take notes on this. So as an example, I might write my first objective to be in a one-to-one setting, my next objective to be in a small group setting, and then I might say my next objective is in, say, a special ed setting, and then my annual goal is across all settings. See how I just broke that up into those small pieces to be able to write all of my objectives. And one thing that's really super important to me when I'm writing goals, that my objectives are meaningful. I don't just throw them in there because I know that I have to get them done. I want them to be meaningful in the way that a student is going to learn that skill. So for this particular student, and there's not one right way to do it, right? Because each student is different in the area that they're working on that skill. So with this student, I might start with that one-to-one because I know that that is what I really need to do to make it meaningful. Once we get through that one-to-one setting, we're going to move to the small group, to the large group. I might start in an unstructured setting and then move to a structured setting. I might start in a special ed setting and then move to a general ed setting. All of those I can play around with when I'm writing my objectives. So hopefully that you know, kind of makes sense to you. I'm gonna go ahead and mute. And it is hard not seeing, but I am gonna, let's see. If anything becomes unclear, or if you want any clarification, just go ahead and put it in the chat for me, and then I'll make sure to go back and touch on it. So this is one way of writing your objectives for that particular goal, okay? I'm gonna show you a bunch of ways just in one goal to be able to change, to be able to write your objectives. So in that one, I use the setting, right? Now, I can go, I bounced back to our main goal so you can see it again to remember where we are. Now, I'm gonna go to my next area that I can use to write objectives is the actual skill. So in this goal, the skill is student will attend to a teacher-directed lesson as seen by facing the teacher, quiet mouth, materials open to the correct place independently without displaying off-task behavior for 20 minutes. For example, getting out of his seat, talking to his peers, calling out. So how can I write my objectives by using this area? Well, what I can do is a lot of different things. There's a lot of wiggle room in this goal. So I can start by adjusting the as seen by. And so what do I mean by this? I can use those particular skills as my objective. So by the annual goal, I want them to be able to face the teacher, have a quiet mouth, and have their materials open to the correct place. But that's in a year, right? So for my objectives, I might change and say that for the first objective, all they have to do is face the teacher. For the next objective, they might have to face the teacher and have a quiet mouth. And for the next objective, they might have to face the teacher, have a quiet mouth, and have their materials open to the correct place. See how I built on that skill to be able to then get to the annual goal and have meaningful objectives. So that's one way. Another way is you can add prompts into this goal. So I'm going to throw this out there, and I know a lot of people, there's always a lot to say about this, but in my systems, I don't put prompts in annual goals, and I'll tell you why. The reason I don't put prompts in annual goals is because it's not a mastered skill for a student if they have to have prompts. That doesn't mean that we won't use prompts to teach them, but if an annual goal is to monitor the mastery of a skill, which it is, then we shouldn't have prompts in a goal. But you can use them in your objectives. So you could keep the goal exactly the way it is, but add in prompts. You could start with 3 prompts, then go to 2 prompts, then go to 1 prompt, then do it independently. So that's a way to use prompts. You could change it to, you could look at the teacher directed lesson and make some changes in that area. So let's say this is a student who doesn't attend, his worst attending is when it's a non-preferred activity. So you could do your objectives with more preferred teacher directed lessons. So you could even name those lessons. So let's say he loves science and he loves math. So during your objectives, you could name those particular times where he's more likely to attend, and then you can move through where he's less likely to attend, landing on your annual goal, which is that he'll attend for 20 minutes across all activities, right? So that's a way to make objectives meaningful. You can shorten the amount of time in this particular goal. You can shorten the amount of time that a student has to attend as part of your objectives. So your annual goal is for 20 minutes. You could start off for 5 minutes, go to 10 minutes, go to 15 minutes, with your annual goal being 20 minutes. A very easy way to write objectives. You could also adjust the off-task behavior list. So during the objectives, you are not going to expect him to do all of, or you're not going to expect him not to do all of those behaviors. So you might say this entire goal, but for your first objective, all you want to see is that he's not getting out of his seat. Then you might add in talking to his peers and calling out. That's one way to make the objective. So you can see, if we just look at the first two sections, I have now given probably 20 or 25 different ways that you can write objectives based on this goal, just looking at the different sections. And we're not done yet. So let's keep moving through. The next area, if we go back to the goal, is, and these are easy areas too to use, and can be meaningful. I don't want you to fall back on them all the time, but they are easy to use and they're easy to make meaningful, because now the 80% of opportunities is the accuracy, right? This is the amount that this student is going to be correct in that skill. So you can just start with a lower level of accuracy. He starts at 60% accurate, then he goes to 70, then he goes to 75, and by the annual goal, he's at 80% accuracy. This one, you really need to be thinking about what their baseline is and where they're working, because that's how you know what the accuracy of the skill is. Because if he's at, if he's already at 70%, then you're not going to write a baseline for 60%, right? That doesn't work. Now you could, though, if he's at 70%, you might even make smaller. You might go 70% or 72%, 75%, however you want to do it. You can use that accuracy as the area that you write objectives. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the goal one more time so that we can see the last area that I'm going to touch on is the consistency. And that's in blue. That's the over a 2-week period. How long are they going to be able to show this skill? This is something that gets forgotten a lot in IEP goals, but it's really important. And let me tell you why. Especially for, I use this area a lot for my objectives, especially for students who have memory or mastery generalization issues. So if I have a student who, let's say, can do something for a very short time, but it doesn't last for a long time. So maybe one day they do it, then they can't do it for a month, and then they do it for another time. That's when I'm going to maybe look at using this as my objective area, because maybe I'll start that they only have to show this to me over a very short amount of time. And then ultimately I might extend that to a much longer time. And the reason this is important is because we want kids to be able to not just show us something in a moment. We want them to actually be able to generalize or master that skill. That's what I'm always focusing on, is really mastery of the skill, because it doesn't do kids any good if they can only do it every once in a while, right? So that's an area that you can also make changes in. So if we go back to this goal and we look from the beginning, you can see that now I've probably talked about 40 different ways that you can write objectives based on this one particular goal without having to scramble and try and figure out other things to do. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. All right, so I'm just going to talk through a couple other goals, and now I'm going to talk a little bit. You know, I'm gonna kind of use the same model, but we're just going to talk a little bit because now I've kind of laid it out for you. And if you want a copy of this presentation to be able to see, then you can. You know what? I'll put my email down, and you can email me, and I'll send you a PDF of the. I'll screenshot it for you if you want, because I know it's hard to remember. Or feel free to just take a picture. Okay, so another goal. I just wanted to give a couple more examples. So by 8/3/2020 in the large group setting, student will do what is instructed by the teacher as seen by, and again, I have as seen by, saying okay, following the instruction as given within 30 seconds, and keeping a quiet mouth. That says with, it should say within. Without displaying interfering behavior, for example, saying no, doing it his way, or putting his head down in 3 out of 4 opportunities over a 4-week period as measured by observation. So if you go back to the samples that I gave you before, it's going to be all the same kinds of examples in a large group setting. This goal is set for a large group setting, but maybe we can't start there. Maybe we have to do one-to-one. Maybe we have to do a small group setting. Maybe we have to do a preferred setting. All that same information is the same. Again, maybe we change our as seen by, and they only have to do some of those. Maybe we change the displaying interfering behavior piece. All of those work in together. In this one, it's 3 out of 4 opportunities. Maybe we start with 1 out of 4 opportunities, then we go to 2 out of 4, then we move up to 3 out of 4. Those are all possibilities. Maybe we add in prompts. Those are all ways to write objectives that then give you meaningful objectives that lead to meaningful goals. Okay. Another one. So I wanted to just kind of include in those were 2 learning to learn kind of behavioral goals. And now I wanted to add in a couple more academics. And I wanted to add a functional time goal. Well, I wanted to add a functional goal because a lot of times writing objectives are required when we have more moderate to severe kids. And I know that teachers struggle with that. This is one of my favorite goals. That's why I put it in here, just because I think it's great. So by 8/3/2020 in a small group setting, student will be able to identify by pointing at a picture or speaking 2 activities that he does in the morning, 2 activities that he does in the afternoon, and 2 activities he does at night independently in 80% of opportunities over a 2-week period. I'll just give you even a little off topic. The reason I like this goal is because a lot of times when we're writing functional life skills goals, we end up kind of getting stuck writing goals that aren't necessarily that important to students. And telling time is sometimes that issue. If a student is cognitively impacted in a way that telling time is not going to be a skill that leads towards their own independence, then I encourage people to really focus on skills that do focus on that. And knowing what you do in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening, those are functional skills. More so. So that's kind of why I just so you know, that's kind of why I write that goal. But again, okay, so how do we do this? How do we make changes in this goal? We change the setting, we change where they have to do it, how they have to do it there, right? And this one has a really nice breaking down process, because we said that we're going to have 2 activities that he does in the morning, 2 activities he does in the afternoon, and 2 activities he does at night. The objectives are laid out right there for you really nicely. You can just start with the morning, add in the afternoon, and add in the night. And then you've got your objectives as you move through. Because remember, all an objective is breaking the skill down so that you know where are you expecting them to go throughout the year. It doesn't have to have new skills at all. It shouldn't really have new skills. Somebody had said one time, I think they were asking me a question, and they said, isn't an objective, and that's one of the things that kind of triggered me to do this training, isn't an objective just writing multiple goals? And it shouldn't be. It should not be. It should be writing one goals and systematically breaking that skill down so that we know what we want them to do along the way. So this is broken down really nicely for you already just by doing the activities in the morning, the afternoon, and the evening. Then again, we have the 80%. We can break that down. We can do that less. And then we have over a 2-week period. Again, we can look at that. Sorry, I'm letting a few people in. We can look at making that change. So again, if you go back, and I'm going to slide back up in a minute so that if you didn't get a chance to take a picture of the slides and you want to, you can. But again, I'm also going to post this whole training across sites too. So, and you can always reach out to me if you didn't get some of it. Okay, I wanted to do an academic goal because people ask about that as well. So by 8/3/2020 in a large group setting, student will, after reading a passage at, and I say insert the grade level because you always need to insert a grade level when you're doing a reading comprehension goal. Student will be able to identify either verbally or in writing the main idea of the passage, the main character, and 2 supporting details in 80% of opportunities over a 2-week period. So if we were together in person, I would say, how can you change the setting? Well, I've said it 5 times, so I'm sure you're bored of hearing it by now, but we can look at a small group setting, we can look at a one-to-one setting, we can look at a large group setting, we can change it that way. How can we break down this skill in a different way to get the objectives? Well, again, this is another one that's broken down for you, that's laid out really nicely for you. So if you said that one objective could be the main idea, one objective could be the character, and one objective could be 2 supporting details, that's awesome. That's exactly how you could do it to make it really easy for yourself. Be thinking about other ways. If you want to put in the chat, anybody that wants to share some in the chat about ideas they have, feel free to do that as well. So again, your objectives can either be your setting, they can be what the skill is, they can be the accuracy or the consistency. So any of those would work great for these goals. Okay, so just as kind of a wrap up, I'm gonna go over some goal writing tips for you. Even though I know I said I wasn't going to talk too much about goal writing in specifics, but I did want to just give you a few tips since you're here. Goals need to be individualized for each student, no cut and paste, but using goal banks as a starting point is good. I know that, you know, a lot of people use goal banks and those are great, but just remember, they may not be the end all for every goal that you write. You want to make it, you know, individualized. Goals should be specific. They should focus on one skill at a time. We don't want to put a whole bunch of skills in. If you do that, that does make it harder when you're writing your objective. If you have like, student will write down their homework, they'll put their homework in their backpack, they'll turn in their homework, they'll ask questions if they don't understand. Very hard to write objectives on that because there's too many skills within that one goal. Goals shouldn't be eligibility specific, so you shouldn't be thinking necessarily like this is my LD goal or my ADHD goal. They're based on student need. Goals shouldn't be grade level because goals are deficit driven. And if you have questions about that, I'm not going to go into detail here. I do that in like my course and some other places, but I'm also happy to answer that separately. They should be connected to a grade level skill, but they shouldn't be written for grade level skills. Goals should be focused on what we want the students to be able to do, not what we don't want them to do. Now, having said that, what we don't want them to do, that's a nice place. The objectives are a nice place to do that. Writing meaningful IEP goals is hard and it doesn't happen overnight. Writing objectives is also hard and doesn't happen overnight. So don't feel like you have to do it. If you want any more trainings in IEPs, I have a little course that I offer on writing IEPs. IEPs Untangled is where IEPsuntangled.com is where you can find it. Also, you can also go to learntoteachwithbrandy.com, and that's my website, and I have tons of free resources, blogs, and resources, and all kinds of different things you can access for free if you're interested. So now I am going to, what I'm going to do just real quick is I'm going to pop up to the top here, and I am going to go to a couple pages just real quick if you want to take pictures. If you didn't, because sometimes that helps. We already had that. Here's some sample goals. Feel free to take pictures and use if you'd like. And then here are the pages with the objective ideas so that if you, I know that was a lot, so if you forget, here they are for you. Again, I'm happy to send this all to you if you need, but feel free to take a picture real quick if you see something you want to save. All right. That about wraps it up. I am going to pop up to see if anybody had any questions in the chat. Nope. Okay. So thank you all for being here. Please feel free. Oh, I was going to also actually put in the chat my email, and I will do that right now, so that if you have any questions, feel free. Sorry, it's hard for me to type and talk. There you go. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm always happy to chat, give you ideas, help you work through a goal or an objective, whatever you need. And thanks so much for being here, guys. And like I said, I'm going to go ahead and post this in some different places. So if you need to have access to it, you should be able to get that. All right, everybody. This is a Friday, and that's exciting. So everybody have a wonderful Friday and a great weekend. I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks.